welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I'm Crina Mustafa alongside Calvin Wetzel. We are so excited. I know there was no episode last week, but we were busy off doing our own things. I was in the W Finals, did a little bit of a college road trip. Cal was over in Vegas covering a couple of media days. Big timer over here. And we got a pretty exciting interview at the end of today's episode, which we'll get into. But Cal, are you ready?
I'm so ready. I don't know why you're calling me the big timer when you were out here interviewing all the big time people that we're gonna hear from later in this episode and next week.
Oh man. Okay. Well, it's speaking of the interview this week, which today, when you're listening, we will be dropping the Cass Prosper sit down that I did over at Notre Dame at the second half of this episode. So if you stick around a little bit, you'll get to hear from her about her Olympic experience and much more this summer. But let's get into how our trips went. The New York Liberty are the WNBA champions. They won game 5 over the Minnesota Lynx. I was there for games 1 and 2 at Barclays, which were some of the craziest, especially game 1 was the craziest games of the series. And I had been to Barclays before, but I had never been to Barclays for like such a high stakes game, such as the finals. And I just got to say, like, that crowd was crazy. Like, they kept setting new attendance records pretty much every game. And I think they hit like 19,000 for game 5 because they were selling standing room seats as well, which, like, I have my own take on standing room seats, and like I think it's kind of ridiculous that they went for over $200 when you can't even sit down. But hey, what do I know? But the crowd, the atmosphere was honestly like so much fun. They were so loud. The Brooklyn crowd was so into it, and just like it made the experience so much cooler. And it was fun to be there and like talk to different players. Was able to get, interviews with Richard Carlton and drop that feature for Canada basketball and get a lot of good stuff for her hoop stats as well. But honestly, yeah, it was really cool. Cal, I wish you could have been there. Maybe we'll meet one of these days in person.
Yes, it's gonna happen. I would have loved to be there, but for me, like the fact that I mean, you can talk about like what they're charging for standing room, but the fact that there are people who are willing to pay $200 for standing room tickets tells you like how big time this
Do
was.
your
I think
thing. Yeah.
like that's how you know you've made it. Like the W is here. Like and the ratings that this did on TV, over 2 million watched game 5, and it delivered. Like the whole series delivered. So obviously, as someone watching from home, like I couldn't get enough. I was glad I went 5 games because I just like could not get enough. And we got 2 overtimes too. We got like the most possible basketball that we could have gotten in 4 of those games were incredible down to
Yeah.
the other than game 2, they were all tied within like a few
They were
seconds left
very
of
close.
regulation. 2 of them were literally tied at the
Yeah.
end of regulation, went to overtime, and 2 of them were tied. Game 3 was tied until Sav hit that shot at the end to win it. Game 4 was tied until Bridget Carlton made those free throws at the end. Like these games were basically all tied through like
Wow.
99.9% of the game. That's how evenly matched these teams were and how electric it was. But like, I just want to know, like, for you being in the building, like, how electric was it for you with the noise and the atmosphere and the moment just being there?
It was honestly crazy, and, like, it's so hard because as media, you're not, like, cheering for anybody, like, you're just kinda sitting there, but it's, like, the energy of the crowd when all these, like, really cool plays happen, like, it's really hard to contain yourself
Yeah, how could you
sometimes,
not?
especially when, like, each team goes on their own run or, like, for example, at the end of game 1, Stewie misses that free throw at the end, and you can feel the crowd just like, "Oh my god," it was hostile, or, like, when Fee was getting a foul call on her and she'd get like her fourth foul of the night and the crowd would just like cheer so loud and like it just was such a different atmosphere. I absolutely love Barclays just as an arena itself, and the fans showed up for the WNBA finals, and I wish I could have been there for game 5, but it seemed like it was such a blast. And all the players, like, it was actually really fun to talk to them. I feel like from either side, whether it was Minnesota or New York, they all had really insightful things to say after each of the games, especially with how back and forth this series was. I think one of the most interesting things that popped out to me were their perspectives after a loss in the series. So, like, for example, New York after game 1, every mistake that they made was something fixable. And like something that Sandy had said in pressers was, we went away from our principles of play. And even just talking to like Sabrina and the other players after, they were saying it almost felt better that the mistakes they made were fixable, because it wasn't like they played their best basketball and lost the game. It was like, okay, we know exactly where we went wrong and this is what we have to do. And then they respond in game 2 and they win that one. And so it was really cool being in person. You kind of get a better sense of the way that these players are thinking after every game. And it's cool hearing their philosophies, and just getting a little bit more insight. And hopefully I did a good job of sharing that to everybody else too. But yeah, it really makes you think just like how smart and how passionate all these players and like coaching staffs are. And I think this was a series where I was like, can both teams win? Like, I didn't want any of them to lose, because they
Definitely.
both had such special storylines. If you think about it, like New York has been building up to this, and there was a whole super team narrative, and the way that they lost last year, which, like, fine, that's a big storyline. But to me, I'm like watching Sabrina and Benijah get this together when they were the blueprint of this New York team, where like they were there when it was bad. Like that was like my first season covering the team, was Benijah's first year as well. And just like watching them build towards this moment, I just think there were so many cool little storylines like that. And then Minnesota, who I think has a very good chance of being this exact same spot next year. I think that was kind of like the dilemma for me when like I was kind of thinking, okay, who will benefit the most from winning this series versus who will still be okay if they lose it. And I think Minnesota's probably, they probably don't want to hear this, but I think they have a much better shot than the Liberty, for example, just with the upcoming like free agency and everything that's going to change. Like, I think Minnesota has a much better shot at like being back here next year and potentially like being the ones to win it. Just because I think they're better set up for that. And I think this is only the beginning for them. Whereas like New York, it felt a little bit more like now or never with this like group of players that they assembled together. And I think adding players like Leonie Fibic just added so much more to them this year. And yeah, I think that kind of shone through. So they may feel robbed. They may feel like it was stolen from them, but I think they'll be back. And I think they've all been pretty insightful. Also, I just want to say Cheryl Reeve in press conferences, she is such a hoot. Like she's so funny, because if you ask a question that she thinks is not smart, she will make you pay for it in the most like subtle way possible, if that makes sense. But like shots fired. And it's just like really entertaining to sit and listen to her. Obviously like she was heated after game 5, but I think that was it's warranted. I mean, like it's tough when your team loses the way that they did, and you wanna defend your players and stick up for them. But yeah, it was a really crazy series, and I was really happy to be in New York. I had a lot of fun, and yeah, it was kind of a vibe.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you got to experience that, and I wish I could have been there too. But this whole series, like you said, just like it's I'm gonna remember this forever as like of any sport, like one of the best postseason series that I've ever
Yes,
seen. And you talked about the players and like how much resolve they had to like keep responding. And keep thinking about how like game one, like New York had it and then they blew it,
yeah,
and it would have been easy to just fold after that, but they responded. And then in game three, Lynx were up double digits. They blow the lead, it's tied, and then Sabrina rips their hearts out. And like it would have been easy for them to fold, but they responded in game four. Like both of these teams continued to just punch back every time. And that's what made this series so special, is that like no one was ever gonna roll over and go away. And that's why it cosmically had to be settled in overtime of game five. It couldn't have been any other way.
that's what we deserved. That's what we deserved after what a long series it was. Like truly, I think is one of the best basketball series I have ever seen in my lifetime. Really, really entertaining. Gave us everything, and I think Game 5 was pretty messy. I think we can all agree with that. I don't think either team was at their best. However, that's kind of what happens when you're at like the very last game of a very long season, especially in a season like this one that also had the Olympics. Just came down to a matter of who wanted it the most, or who was able to kind of grind that out. So yeah, it may have been messy, but it was definitely one of the best basketball series we've ever witnessed. And New York was a vibe. So congrats to them, and very interested to see what this next free agency period looks like for them and a bunch of other teams, because we also know that they opted out of their CBA. So we got a lot of change coming up. New expansion team next season. I don't know if we're ready for that, but I guess we'll see. But Cal, kind of like switching gears to college, while I was at the finals, you were, or I guess, yeah, finals slash like after I did some college stuff, you were in Vegas, doing some media day with the West Coast Conference and the Mountain West Conference. How did that go? Like those were huge days, and like you guys put in a ton of hours.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It definitely was a lot of hours doing. I hadn't done like 2 media days back to back like that before. We had like the whole Mountain West in the morning and then lunch and then the whole WCC in the afternoon. And they like those 2 conferences are smart. You know, they share the hotel so they can kind of share all the like expenses and everything like that. So same location, 22 teams c- uh, coming all to one location for one day was
Wow.
really fun, really cool to just see all the different players and coaches there. For me, I think the most fun part of media days in general, and this one, both of these were, part of this as well, is you really can see, I think, more at media days than maybe almost any other media setting, like the vibes that players and coaches have with each other. I think you get it a lot more than you do at like a press conference. And obviously, if you're like behind the scenes and know them kind of off the court and just talk to them, like you're getting that's where you're really gonna get like the most juice. But just in terms of like official kind of media sanctioned stuff, like that's the most that I think you get a look of like how players and coaches really like relate to each other, and you can see the coaches that like really have their players trust and the players buy in and love them and respect them and have fun playing for them, and they all kind of just have joy like being in this program together. You can see that it's like unspoken that like you can read body language and vibes and energy, and pick up on that type of thing. And I think like there are 2 coaches in particular I wanted to shout out for that, like one from each conference, a couple of new coaches who are in their first year at their teams. Wesley Brooks was a coach that I had a lot of fun talking to in his first year as a head coach, taking over at Utah State. He was an assistant at Ohio State before that. He was at Michigan at one point, and so he's coached for some of the big names, Kim Barnes-Arico, Kevin McGuff, people like that. Had a lot of praise for them and like what he's learned from them. But in terms of basketball, he said he's going to bring the 22 press that Ohio State runs that they're known for, and so I'm looking forward to watching that with Utah State, just them getting after it, on defense for 94 feet. But
I feel like a lot of teams are going to try that this season.
yeah, if it works, you replicate it, right? If you can. But
Yeah.
it's cool to hear him talk about that and talk about what else he wants to bring. Like he wants to shoot the three a lot. He's had his players already watch film of like JC Sheldon, Taylor Mikesell, like some of the good shooters Ohio State has had. But also just vibes that I was talking about, the energy. Like you can tell, like he's having fun already. He hasn't even officially coached a game yet, and he's having fun with his players already. They love being there with him and playing for him, and so I'm really looking forward to following them. Shout out to Coach Brooks. I think he's going to do a great job there. And then uh, that was the Mountain West, and then WCC in the afternoon. Katie Faulkner in her first year at Pepperdine. They only won 3 games last year, so she's stepping into a situation that is not easy as a coach to come into. But she just gave again like great energy. You can tell how much like you would not know the challenging situation that they're in just by talking to them. You can tell how much she already has kind of the buy-in of the players to turn this program around. And in particular, like Maggie Vick is obviously when you have a player like or a situation like that, in a new coach and a team that didn't win very many games, a lot of the players are going to be new. There's a lot of turnover. Maggie Vick's one of the few that's back. And in asking her about, like kind of what the vibes are compared to like last year and this year, like she could have easily just said some cliche stuff like, "Oh, it's been good, it's been fun, whatever." But she went like really deep and honest about just like how much it is meant to her to have Katie Faulkner as a coach already just for a few months in the off season and the preseason, and saying like, she was the coach that we really wanted to take over. Like she's been so good for us, and we are just so excited to play for her, and all of this really high praise. You could tell like immediate energy shift for this program already before the season has even started. So I'm really, really looking forward to watching Utah State and Pepperdine in particular and those new coaches and what they do there. But not to leave anyone else out, so many fun players and coaches that we got to talk to and really learn a lot from, and very insightful, and had a great time.
I love that. And if anybody missed those that media day content, it is up on the Her Hoop Stats YouTube channel. Cal and Christy went live for both of those conferences. So if you want to go and check out any of that stuff, I highly recommend that you go and do that. So that was a YouTube shout out, but I guess in a different way this week.
It
Um,
counts. It counts.
but yeah, so like we're officially, I mean, there's a lot of W news still, with the coaches and GMs being fired over the last week. And I'm sure we'll get into more of that next week. But we are kind of moving on to the college season. And what better way to kick that off than with a sit down interview with Miss Cass Prosper from Notre Dame women's basketball. She's coming off injury. She looks good. She feels good. And it was such a blast to talk to her. Cal, anything else you want to say before I tee up this interview for our listeners?
No, I've been excited for like how long has it been? A week and a half or whatever since you interviewed her. I've been really excited to hear this, and
Yeah.
I, like our listeners, am hearing this for the first time. So cue it up. I'm ready.
I will cue it up. So here is Cass Prosper from Notre Dame. Everybody, I'm here with Cass Prosper of Notre Dame women's basketball. She's also a 2024 Olympian with the Canadian Senior Women's National Team, ACC tourney champ, 2023 Canada U19 Women's FIBA World Cup bronze medalist, where you led with points per game for Team Canada. Also, 2023 Canada Senior Women's National Team FIBA Women's America bronze medalist, among so many other accolades. I feel like I could be here all day listing everything that you've done. Cass, how are you doing?
I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm good. We got the morning light,
I know.
basking
Lighting
in.
is great.
The lighting is amazing. It makes me think of summer, and safe to say you've had a long summer, a wild summer from training camp, being named to the Olympic team.
Yeah.
Have you had time to kind of sit and reflect on everything that's happened?
I actually have. I mean, after the Olympics, I went to Greece with my family, so it was a good time to just pause and just reflect on my past Olympics, especially being injured this past season. I got to really like play, and that was so amazing for me because like just not playing for a whole season and just being able to get back on the court and just play for my country. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. So I was just really grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of players have said like there's a different level of pride that comes with wearing your country on your chest. Is there like a different version of you if you were to look back from the beginning of summer to now? Just any big takeaways?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I've grown so much in terms of just appreciating the game. I think I'm very, I have a lot of high expectations and standards for myself, but throughout this past Olympics, I've just, especially being younger and just trying to learn so much from like pros and playing as pros, playing with pros, and just trying to grasp as much, like being a sponge basically. So just having a lot more grace and patience with myself. I think I've learned that, and just like gratitude for game, not taking it for granted, appreciating every second I have on the court.
I love that. And speaking of learning from people, taking a look at this team, looking past the results, I want to know what your experience was like with Natalie Achano. Being that leader, you have that Irish connection.
Yes.
It was also her last go around as a player. So
Yeah.
what was that like, kind of learning from her?
Oh my gosh, it was so interesting because she's also a mother. So having Mav there throughout the whole journey, like the camps and then the Olympics, I think I saw her wear different hats, which to me was so amazing. She's a great leader on the court. That's like everyone knows that. Really takes the younger ones under her wing and just tries to give us as much knowledge as we can. I remember asking her about the Olympics and how her experiences were and how do you like prepare for an Olympic? And she was like, you just get in and you only have 3 games. That's it. Nothing's guaranteed, So having that mindset, I think was great. But then just seeing her like being a mom while being a great leader to us, while being a great performer on the court, that was really special.
Yeah, she definitely wears a lot of hats and she does
Yes.
it well. Looking at some of the younger people on this team, that U19 team, so many of you guys are in college now. But
Mhm.
Sila, you guys were able to share this Olympic experience
Yes.
together.
Yeah.
What was that like going through this journey with somebody who you've pretty much like grown up with?
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, Silen and I've played, we played U17, U19 together, and just we've gone through the senior process together.
Mhm.
So having her as like my other youngin, that was really cool because you don't feel. I mean, we had also like Yvonne and
Yeah.
girls that are still in college, but Silen and I are pretty much like the same age, she's a year younger than me. So just having someone that you can relate to because like you're still playing with grown women like we're just
Yeah.
kids compared to them, so having that it was really nice. Yeah.
And then building on that, the U17, U18 teams had a lot of success this summer with their competitions. Where are you kind of seeing the kind of growth of Canadian talent and being put on the map? And like, how is going through age group competitions and training camps yourself kind of helped with that?
Absolutely. I mean, you get to play against different countries. So, like, you get to experience world basketball, which is like that gives you already like an edge because you get to experience physicality, how there are different styles of play, and then you just learn through it. I think also you get a different certain like pride for your country because you get to go through like every step age group for your country. But I would say like looking at this past year, like the U17s, they did amazing. They got silver. My coach Val, which coached the U17s, she also coached me in high school. So I'm so proud of her because, she just did her best coaching. And I think the girls were so amazing with responding to that and just going out there and playing and representing Canada very well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember some of your early days of like when you first got invited to a camp? Because like I've talked to
I
Yvonne in
do.
the past, and she's like, it was crazy. She was like, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah, I mean, I think I was like maybe 14
Mm-hmm.
or no, yeah, 14 actually, because it was after nationals, which I had played U15, but I was 14. So I was 14, and it was for like U16 tryouts or something, and it was just like whoa, like you think about just the level of um, I would say just the experience itself was very like professional in a way because it's like so big. It's like Canada, an organization, and you want to do so well because it's like it's your country. But I think I went in there and I was just like, let me try to learn as much as possible. We had a couple. Eventually, it evolved. We got Noah Quinn, which is like she's a great WNBA coach. So like eventually, you get to really understand the different levels of pro because you get to be coached by different people that are in different stages as they're coaching. But I remember it was very exciting, very big. I remember seeing so many tall girls, which I was not used to seeing. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
You're pretty tall yourself.
Yeah, I know.
So I saw that although you ended up sticking with basketball, you played like so many other sports:
Mhm.
volleyball, tennis, soccer, track.
Yeah.
I did play volleyball in high school. So what position were you?
I was the center. I was blocking shots and smashing. That's it.
I was a setter, so I was setting it up. And then two, how did playing all those sports kind of help you develop your footwork when you did eventually stick with basketball? Because I think that's something that has always intrigued me.
Well, definitely soccer. You work with your feet. You're not allowed to use your hands, so that really helped me. I think early on developing this like agility as a kid. But I would say the biggest thing, which I realized recently, probably like a year ago, is like timing when I would like attack balls or whatever in volleyball or smash balls. That's the same timing that I use to block shots, which is really cool because like I can like time the ball very well because I know how to like the steps work and stuff like that. So I actually realized that last year. I was like, wow, like that really helped me with. And then you play like team sports, which obviously helps you with basketball, which is a team sport. And yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. That's true because like in volleyball, you're like you have to get it at the right time. Okay, I really like that.
Yeah.
Switching gears to Notre Dame, how are you feeling heading into this season? Obviously we talked about you dealt with injury before, but how are you feeling going into this?
I feel great. I think we have such a great team. I love our growth. Like I've seen us. I wasn't really there this summer, but from when I came back from the Olympics, I've seen our growth. throughout the past couple months, preseason. And I just love how our team is so focused on our goals, which is to win championship. And I love the trajectory of this team. So yeah, I'm excited for the season. Super excited.
I love it. And the last thing, I wanted to ask you about your Instagram bio. It says doing things differently is no longer underrated. I
Oh
want to know, what does
yeah.
that mean to you and why do you have it in there?
Yes. I remember when I first got Instagram, which was my last year of high school. I didn't have it growing up because I just thought, it was a distraction, and I didn't want to get it because other people wanted me to get it. So I didn't get it. And then that's just the first thing that was, I guess, my thought. I haven't changed it, which is kind of crazy when I think about it. I wouldn't change it, but it's just, doing things differently, which for me was like a significance of going to college early, which is different. Getting Instagram later, which was different. Just that's no longer underrated, or it's no longer um, just thought of. It's something that can actually propel you for the future.
Wow, I
Mhm.
love that. All right, so thank you so much for joining me,
Of
Cass. Good
course.
luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning
Thank
in, and we
you.
will see you next week.